Hello everyone, welcome back to The Green Man. Thank you for joining me for another Friday night album review, and this time round I'm covering the latest release from the technical death metal band Cognitive with their album Malevolent Thoughts of a Hastened Extinction, released today via Unique Leader Records. The album is 10 tracks and it is about 40 minutes in length. And pretty soon into my listening of this album, I realised that the singer seems to have quite a range of harsh vocals, including these really deep guttural vocals, which sound almost like a gurgling sound because he's going so low, and really sort of a vocal you kind of hear, I think, in this kind of deathcore, brutal, technical death metal sound quite a lot these days, and it's quite an interesting one. Personally, I don't mind it. I guess I wouldn't want it overused too much. It feels like something that's good, best used sparingly with that kind of really deep gurgling sound. But obviously I thought used pretty effectively here. So starting now with a bit more of a breakdown into each track on this album. ENIAC, a really good dynamic opening track to this album. It's the ice cream van in the background going off. You can hear that. Apologies, not so death metal I guess, but anyway. ENIAC is a pretty cool opening track. I enjoyed this one. Enjoyed the guitar solo in particular that came in around the kind of bridge part of the song, I think. Really good stuff. The more was quite good. I mean, as this album went on, it perhaps felt reasonably familiar to me though, as a kind of this sort of an album with this kind of sound. Didn't feel like it was introducing me to much that I hadn't really heard before, and I don't know if that's harsh, a bit unfair, but for me I just felt that way about this album. From the Depths was a good track, but it kind of reminded me a lot of Spears of Madness at times from Decapitated, but I still quite liked that as a track. Ouroboros was quite good. To Feed the Worms was okay. That was another track which I sort of felt like it was very familiar to me, strangely enough, but again, you might have had a different experience with it. Malevolent Thoughts and Turrentine from Bone were quite good. Destitute reminded me a bit of Fit for an Autopsy, and in the way that you had that kind of slower track, which almost felt a bit more progressive, but it certainly reminded me of some of Fit for an Autopsy's slower songs as well. And then on the Hastened Extinction was a good track. Probably my favourite from the album was actually the opener, ENIAC, because that presented me something I felt I wasn't entirely familiar with, and it shifted about all over the place. I loved it, and loved the closing riff of that song as well. To be honest, overall, I think as much as this, as these musicians are hugely talented, and for this kind of technical death metal album with this brutal sound, I think you have to be really skilled with either the electric guitar riffing or the drumming or the bass work, whichever it is that you're doing. I really think this stuff is obviously very tough to play, and I have total respect for the musicians. But to be honest, if we're just talking within this kind of style of music, I didn't feel there was much here that I hadn't really heard before. And if you're listening to a new album, you always want to have that little bit of edge or something that makes the band stand out from the rest. And therefore, and I'm sorry if you're a huge Cognitive fan, that's absolutely fine, but for me I would give this about a 6 out of 10 if I'm being honest with how I'm feeling about this album right at this point in time. I will listen to it a bit more in the future to give it more of a chance, but I think I would give this a 6 out of 10 at this point. Feel free, as always, to drop in the comments your feelings about this latest release from Cognitive. How do you think it compares to their other albums? What do you think about the tracks? Do you feel very differently from how I do about the album? You're welcome to put that in the comments. Otherwise, hope you all enjoy your Friday nights. Oh, I'll put in the description as well, if you want to support the band, I will put a link into the album for you to be able to purchase, download the album, if you would like to support this band. Anyway, as ever, do feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you like album reviews. I also do stuff on sci-fi, fantasy and horror, as well as music. Otherwise, take care everybody, and as I say, enjoy your weekends.